You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from, coaches, or as Dr. Sherry likes to say, the coaches nation, coaching nation, the coaches nation, something like that. I am obviously not Dr. Sherry. I can't be as pretty as her. She is gone. She's I think dealing with a few interesting things that she's taking care of in her business. So Jeff has so graciously decided to join us once again. This is the third time actually Jeff has been on our podcast, and we've had amazing conversations around closing and sales. What does that look like? Hesitation, dealing with hesitation. But Jeff has also talked quite a bit about his journey and how he's supporting military veterans. So definitely watch those podcast episodes or listen to them if you haven't already. You should have the link for them below, or the link to the main podcast pages so you can find that. Before we get started, maybe we can just get started with some wins as we normally do. Jeff, please share a win with us, a quick win.
Let me see. I've been almost finished with my workbook for a workshop that I'm doing next week. And I'm calling it's the new mission protocol, and basically let's help veterans find the next mission for them and make the next 90 days more productive than the rest of the year combined.
Awesome. I love that.
So I'm jazzed about that. That'll be fun. Yeah. So I'll start letting folks know about that probably tomorrow morning.
Great. You can share the link with us. Maybe we'll share it under the post here too.
Cool.
So good word can be spread, because you're helping people in the veteran community, and it's much needed right now.
I think it is. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll share a win. So for me, it's been very interesting. Jeff and I were talking about is like just being kind of on edge. But so for me, it's been like I've been so stretched thin the past month and a half, because I'm trying so many different things. I'm promoting 3 separate events all at once. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying things. And it feels a lot like when I was starting out my coaching journey, which connects to our topic as well, which is that not losing sight of the growth, not taking our growth for granted, not being humble in the process. Realizing that even though we're supporting others, we're actually growing ourselves, and at times we might need to challenge ourselves to grow. So we'll be talking about that. But for me, just the fact that I'm going through trying all these different things, that's the next level on my path to growth as a coach, as a facilitator, as a trainer. I'm the thing that I feel grateful for is that I'm okay. I haven't gone insane. Just trying all these things that I can't figure out. And this is kind of feels like the second time around, in a sense that the first time it was hard, it was difficult. Now there's this sense of trust and faith that I have, that even though everything is difficult the same exact way as before, and I can't figure out half the stuff, I feel like, okay, the work pays off. I just need to stay focused on what matters. And we'll talk about this stuff in detail, how you can maintain your sanity while you're building a coaching business and while you're growing as a coach, and being grounded and connected to your path, to your vision, and what matters to you. And I also wanted to share a little bit about our sponsor, Coaching Mastery Community. If you have not joined our community yet, I urge you strongly to join it, because I was just talking to, I think, 3 coaches this week from different certifications and one-on-one, and they talked about their struggle of, okay, I just finished my certification. I'm just trying to figure out this stuff, and I'm completely overwhelmed, and I don't know which direction to start in. And guess what? We all felt the same way. That's why we started this community. In fact, originally, as Jeff and I were part of the original founding members, when we started it out, it was just we were struggling with a lot of this stuff. We didn't know which direction to go, but it was incredible how getting around the right people in a mastermind community, in a community of coaches that are trying different things to move their business and path forward, who are serving other people, can make a huge difference. So that's all. And as I talked to these coaches, especially this one coach, by the end of the conversation, it was a 30-minute conversation, by the end of 20 minutes, and I asked him, like, are you connected to a few coaches that you talk to on a consistent basis? Like, once in a while, I'll have a conversation like this. And I told him, like, I can tell you the clear demarcation from overwhelm to me actually doing things on my path as a coach was when I started having weekly conversations with other coaches. Now I have multiple conversations a week with coaches. In fact, they're the most common people I would talk to. And to this day, I do it. And it's incredible how that supports your path. Jeff, did you want to share anything about our community and how the impact of that on our coaches?
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking that there is a tendency to get overwhelmed. And I believe part of that comes from the belief that as we look at everybody else looks like they're just gliding across the pond. They've got this all together. And it's only when we get to talk to other people and we realize that, oh my gosh, they feel every bit as overwhelmed as I do. So, okay, it's not just me. It's not like I'm somehow less than someone else. And I know that when they talk about mastermind groups, I'm always a little bit nervous about joining one because I think, oh my gosh, these people, they're at such a high level. And then you get to know them and realize that yes, they are at a high level, but at least for me, a lot of the power of being with other folks is not because they are so much further ahead. It's because they understand and they relate to, and they often are going through the exact same things that I'm going through. And so we get to solve them together. And that's just one of the things that's been striking for me is from outside of the group, we think, oh my gosh, can I be accepted? We get inside the group, they're like, oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think it's actually, even with my clients, when I'm doing group sessions, the same story. Everybody thinks that they're on this unique thing. They're going through these unique struggles that nobody else can understand. Nobody else can relate to. And a lot of times it's because if you're on a certain growth path, most people around you are not around you. They're like in your family and friends, they can't relate to some of the things that you're going through because you're at another level of growth. Then you will feel like that. But as soon as you get around the right people, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel understood. I feel supported. I feel encouraged. Now I can do stuff. These are like basic human needs. But obviously beyond that, then there are the tools, the perspectives, the resources, all the stuff that you get as you move forward, and to bring back the things that you tried and get live feedback and not be confused. Okay, I'm trying 3 different things. Which one is going to work better? And I think for me, that was a struggle. I was trying a lot of things, but I didn't know what was working. It was until I started getting feedback from people who were trying it, then I started focusing on certain things. And that's what we focus on. And so if you're an impact-driven coach, you're wanting to create a profitable business in the pursuit of serving others, then our community is the place to be. I'll put the link below. You can join our free Facebook group. And we actually air one of our sessions from the paid membership live into our Facebook group. So you'll have access to that. It's completely free to join. Can't believe we made that free. But you're going to get a lot of value. And most of the coaches that are there, they are getting value just by being part of the Facebook group. So just join us there. And let's jump into our topic. Jeff, maybe you can get us started on that.
Well, as we were talking earlier, one of the challenges as coaches, first off, is getting around coaches, but also it's being intentional about the growth and not forgetting how far we've come. In fact, I was just recently thinking about this, that often when as high performers, whether we're high performance, obviously I'm a certified high performance coach, but I think as coaches we tend to be high performers. We tend to be folks who are pushing ourselves constantly, and often it's about doing more. And we look at our goals, And so often we assess it by, okay, this is how far I was yesterday. Now this is how, okay, now I'm still not there, but I'm a little closer. The emphasis tends to be on, I still have a gap. And so often we don't look back and go, okay, well, how much further have I come today? That also plays into being intentional about the growth. Because, Faisal, to your point, we are typically surrounded by people who are not on the same path we're on. And it's too easy to think, okay, well, I'm ahead of them and that's far enough. Well, we need to continue to be pushing ourselves. And so when we're working with a client, when they're talking about the discomfort, what I've found is that when I'm pushing myself, then it's easier for me to relate to the discomfort they're feeling because I'm feeling the same discomfort, maybe at a different level, maybe in a different aspect, but that same discomfort. And so I can be empathetic as I continue to challenge them. And it's, we talk about, we can't take our clients where we aren't willing to go. And it's, I may not be doing exactly what they're doing, but if I'm not challenging myself in that way, then it's difficult for me to with integrity challenge them. That's kind of, and then I think it's important to remember that we have grown and we are better off, but we're not perfect and we should be consistently growing. I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like I'm talking in circles now.
No, I get it. I love that. And you also kind of, you raise an objection that many coaches have around this, is that many coaches are, as they're starting out, is like, well, how can I coach somebody who's quote unquote more successful in the external world than me? And you actually talked about the theme around that. And the theme is actually not about the medium with which somebody is more. So for example, the medium might be, somebody might be very successful financially. Somebody might be very successful in terms of how they look on the outside, their assets, their businesses, and all that stuff. But the thing, when you are approaching it from a coaching point of view, it's a little bit different because we're talking about the human experience. And as coaches, right off the bat, the fact that you're here as a coach, I would venture a big guess that you've struggled with quite a few things to be where you are. You've had to go through your own growth journey.
Sure.
And most coaches I've met, they have gone through that and they felt this need to grow based on whatever specific circumstances they went through, and then they overcame that. They grew and they realized the importance and significance of that. So that's why they want to pass that on to others. And so when you're looking at somebody who is more successful on the external world, this external way, how we look at success, that doesn't actually matter. What matters is how much have you grown internally? How much have you challenged yourself within your life context? How much courage have you developed in that area? And that's where Jeff was kind of alluding to, is that you can't take people where you're not willing to go.
Yeah. The other, as you're talking, one of the things that I was kind of thinking about is that so often, as you talk about, we look at externals and we think, okay, well, they're more successful. They make more money than I do. They oversee more people than I do. And as we coach people, sometimes we realize that their success has been driven by a fear they haven't been able to overcome. The fear of loss, or the fear of want, or not having it, that fear of never having enough. And often that has driven people to be phenomenally successful materially, but they're not operating from a position of strength, although it would appear that way. Often internally, they're still fighting a battle that no longer needs to be fought. And as a coach, often we can help them realize that. We can help them celebrate their success and then move forward from a position of strength, instead of just, what somebody said to them in the third grade that has gone down into their soul, and as a result, it drives them to succeed.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
I
sense.
have and then you reminded me of a client. So like she is somebody most people would idealize her life externally. So here's what it looks like. She can pretty much, she doesn't actually have to work, but she does it to keep herself busy. She's not really passionate about what she does right now, but she pretty much works about 10 hours a week max. She is living in different parts of the world most of the time. She's not living in one place. Like she will just travel and stay in a place for like 2 months. Half the places she has properties of her own. And her husband is an even bigger business owner than her in terms of like, the companies that he's handling. Um, and on the outside, when you look at her, it looks like she's got everything figured out. And then I remember she reached out to me, and she had seen me on a coaching / training call in a community, and then she reached out to me like I think 3, 4, 5 months after that. And then I was curious. So she shares like the reason why I wanted to connect with you is that I feel empty. Like I don't know what to do. She's like, I'm trying to find all these little things to do. Like she tries to fill her time with like little sports or dance or whatever she can do in her business, whatever she wants to do. Money is not an issue for her. That's something that she's figured out. And even if she loses it all, she'll be able to replicate it because she knows the system. That's not a big challenge for her. But what she was seeking more was, one, she felt completely disconnected from her family. Her husband is completely busy in his business and he has very little to no time to even connect with her. So they're actually less than roommates because she's traveling most of the time. She doesn't see her kids, both of them grown up, and she loves her kids. She spent a lot of time. She actually homeschooled them for a long time, and but at this point,
she still loves them after homeschooling them. Wow,
that's a miracle. But what's cool is that she, it's even though she spent all that time, and in the process, her take is that she kind of lost her way in that process, even though she was there for them, but she lost her sense of purpose,
right?
In a sense, her personal sense of purpose. And now, as even though they're grown up, like they're in their own world, she doesn't know how to connect with them very well, and she doesn't know how to connect with anybody outside of her. And now she feels kind of singled out because whatever community she moves into, she can't relate to other people. So she's somebody who likes growing, who likes thinking about deeper things, but most people in her environment, they don't. And she's seeking the right people. She's seeking a sense of purpose. She's seeking a sense of fulfillment. Those are the things that matter to her more than anything else. And I feel like every time we go through a conversation, we meet once a month. She's like, I feel alive after every conversation, and it stays with me for a couple of weeks, but then I feel like I need to find a way to hold on to this because and you can tell how meaningless our life is to her.
Right.
And I bet if somebody has a pill that would give her all that, she would be happy to hand over a lot of her money and success.
You bet.
Because she's in pain.
Yeah. Well, and as you say that, it was interesting because just a couple of days ago when I was with my CMC coach and we were going through one of the sessions on psychology mastery, and it was, and she was talking about, when we talk about psychology mastery, it's really about kind of mastering how we direct our mind. And she mentioned that it was, she'd realized 4 years ago that, man, I was disconnected from ambition. And this was at the very beginning of the session. We had an hour-long session, but that was what hit me most. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've fallen into the same trap. Like you, I have gotten so busy. I'm launching about 3 different things, or trying to launch about 3 different things. And some have momentum. Some I'm trying to get the flywheel to turn. Some are still in the planning stages, but I feel spread so thin, and I've gotten where I'm running. And when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, I've allowed myself to disconnect from ambition. And I think that's but at least for me, and I suspect for many coaches, as we're working so hard to build a business, it's easy to fall into that. We spend so much time working in the business that we don't work on it. I know that's an old hackneyed phrase, but we get so engrossed in the doing that we forget the why we're doing. And then it just then becomes a habit of just doing. It's the same thing we try to coach people out of. And it seems to me that's one of the kind of goes back to our topic, which is understanding that as coaches, often we become aware of this and other people don't. And we have to kind of be okay with that, with understanding that, oh, I'm further along, as opposed to just beating ourselves up because, oh my gosh, I'm a coach. I should know better. I can't believe I disconnected from my ambition. What is wrong with me? I'm such a loser. I should never be a coach anymore.
Yeah. And that's a powerful point, because as coaches, we are like, as soon as you lose sight of that, then you're showing up. Like when we say that, oh, I'm a coach, I'm going to help you. And with that kind of attitude, like you're showing up as that expert, I think you've lost sight of what you're doing, and any
Totally.
coach would have lost sight of what they're doing. Because I think one of the most powerful things that I've realized, one, my clients inspire me, but they also make me humble as well. Because some of the things that they do, at times I realize I'm like, you know what, I need to challenge myself in this area. If I'm gonna show up with integrity, with authenticity, with congruence in those sessions, I need to challenge myself more in this area. And I find that that's very much connected to how much I've challenged myself. I don't need to do the same things as them. For example, when I watch them kind of struggle through their relationships, for example, whether it's with their team members or with their family or whoever, the things that they're trying to do, that the intentionality that they bring or that they want to bring, I often ask myself, am I doing that? At some point I did. There was a point of like, I had a high necessity around it. But then as you kind of get somewhat of a hold of it, then you're like, okay, let me just coast.
You bet.
And then there's this philosopher that said, as human beings, we're not wise because we want to be, but because we're forced to be a lot of times. It's usually our life circumstances force us.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is. And as you were saying, one of the things that I know that I just recently celebrated, I guess, 28 years work as a Dale Carnegie trainer. And one of the things that I've loved about it so much is every session, somebody says something or has some perspective that I had not thought of. And often, I mean, the difference I think in the Dale Carnegie program is I got, 30 people who are all contributing ideas. In a coaching session, it would seem to me that there ought to be, at least every week, probably every day, we're doing at least one session a day, there ought to be something we can take from it and look at it and think, okay, as you said, am I doing this? Is this an area that I need to challenge myself in? Is this an area that I should look at? Is this something I can incorporate in my life? And I believe that coaching, not only is it good for the client, I believe it's really good for the coach if we approach it as a learner.
Yeah. And all you have to do is just get a coach and you will find out how much you're struggling in certain areas.
Boy, no kidding.
Because it'll become very apparent.
Yes.
In that experience, what's happening. Because normally obviously we need to celebrate how far we've come. And like Jeff said, we need to consistently celebrate that part because we have done a lot of work. But I think staying on that path of growth and whether it's an internal challenge, and this is where it will vary. For example, like if you are somebody who's more into transformational coaching, if you're somebody who's more into the spiritual side of coaching versus more on the high performance side of coaching, which is maybe a mix of the external and internal. It doesn't have to be an external challenge. It can be an internal challenge that you need to challenge yourself to grow in that area. It might be in the way that you show up in your life. It might be in the way that you interact with others. It might be in the way that you connect with your faith. Whatever that looks like. And the powerful aspect of this is that as you do that, as that congruence is there, as that alignment and integrity is there, you're not looking at people's external statuses. Because as human being, you intuitively know that we all struggle with similar things. When you become curious about your client's life or potential client's life, you find out that they're struggling in ways that they haven't admitted to themselves yet, not even to themselves, let alone to other people. And we're on the same boat. And as soon as there is that understanding, that's what we call empathy. And from there, you can actually walk with your clients and move forward and support them. And you never know where you can support them until you have that conversation. And most coaches won't have that conversation. They'll just look and judge based on how people look.
Yeah. Well, it goes, Faisal, it goes back to the point we're talking about growth. When we begin to compare ourselves to other people, we start limiting our growth, it seems to me, because we look at that and think, oh, well, this is what I should have. I should aspire to this, or this is where I ought to be headed. And that's quite possible it is, but nobody walks the same path. We all walk a different path. And as we look at somebody else on their path, it may look like they're further ahead, but we don't see the bends that they're going to have to start dealing with here shortly. Yeah. While our path is straight, and sure enough, we're going to be caught up or surpass them. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about this. One of the things that I believe inhibits our growth and it inhibits our ability to help our clients, is the choice to judge them and then compare ourselves to that and think that, oh my gosh, I'm not as good as them, or I'm better than them in this.
Yeah.
In either case, that's not our job. Our job is not to judge. Our job is to help. And the hardest part is getting our own ego out of the way so that we can challenge the questions and we can ask the tough questions, because we know it's going to serve them, as opposed to thinking, well, they're really successful. I don't know if I have earned the right to ask this question. If you care about them, you've earned the right.
Yeah. And there's a subtle point there, and it's very interesting. When you're in a coaching session, whether it's in a group or one-on-one, it's so easy to miss this. So if you actually look at the human mind, like in your own thinking, as soon as you watch as soon as you look at somebody, you've already judged them, whether you like it or not. You've put them in a box, because your mind does that. And that's just how our mind works. We categorize things. We put them in categories so we can easily remember it. We can easily understand them. So if you look at me, for example, Middle Eastern looking guy with a beard, if you didn't hear anything else, you saw me, you will put me in a category. Your mind will put me in a category. Now, here's what I think the subtle point comes in. And this is related to a lot of things. This is related to the beliefs that we have. This is related to all sorts of conclusions that we've come in our mind. We're not even aware of them. A lot of it are subconscious in nature, as Michael Neal talks about in his book, Super Coach. I think, Jeff, you like that book too.
Love that book.
He's like, our mind is more like a projector than it is a camera. It doesn't just take a picture of what it sees. It takes a picture, goes in, gets mixed up with all the things that we know are not aware of, and then we spit it out, whatever that is. Being aware of that kind of mind is that it doesn't always give you an accurate picture in that moment until you do a little bit more digging. And that's the process of seeking, and that's the process of discovery. That's actually the spiritual path as well, is that putting a pause on what we think we know. That's the scientific path as well, putting a pause on our conclusions, getting more data. And the whole process of coaching is, even though the judgments will come in that moment, is like, this person is going on and on about this thing, but they're not doing the thing. All of a sudden you get that thought, you can put a pause on that. You're like, okay, let me ask more questions. What's happening in that area? how come they're not taking action in terms of their business? How come they're not connecting better with their family? How come they're not able to grow out of this challenge that they have? Kind of digging into that will help the client understand more, and it will help you be more open. And what you find out might shock you a lot of times, and it will be very different than the surface conclusions that you came up with. And this is where a lot of, like, when coaches are starting out initially, it's very easy to fall prey to that thought process. Like, okay, because it's easier for us, very comfortable for us to go towards our conclusions, because it takes much less energy for our mind. And we'll just directly go towards these pockets of conclusions that we have created. Oh, this is that, it will connect automatically to our conclusions that you've had. But as you become more open, especially as you're dealing with people who have different beliefs, different ways of approaching life, they have a completely different experience of life than you do, then you will not be able to connect with them at the level of your beliefs. You'll have to connect with them at the level of their needs, and discovering what their needs and wants are in their life, on their path, and challenging them and connecting with them to go there.
As you were saying that, I'm the challenge of being non-judgmental. I'm reminded of something that Dale Carnegie said. He said he would, tell people that I understand. He said, if I were you, I would feel exactly as you do. And I know that sounds like, wow, that's just kind of a standard thing. But he dug it. He said, all right. He dug into it. And he said, all right, if I had that person's DNA, if I had been raised by their parents, if I had their life experiences up to this point, I would be that person, and I would believe exactly as they do. Yeah. And so when I read that, it really resonated with me. Because when I'm telling people, if I were in your shoes, that's exactly what I'd be thinking. There is no, it's not a manipulation tactic. It's something that I can say with complete sincerity, because I know that if I were that person, yeah, that's exactly, I'd be thinking or feeling exactly what they're thinking or feeling. And so I have no right to judge them. I think about it that we look into somebody's life as a coach or as a friend, and it is like looking through the keyhole in the front door of a castle. Yeah. And we can see a tiny sliver of the entrance hall, and we immediately assume we know what's happening in every single bedroom.
Yeah, I love that analogy, and it reminded me of something else too. But there's this, it was this Harvard researcher, professor. He actually had spent about 50 years looking into inmates who were convicted of all sorts of things, from murder to rape, like some of the worst things that human beings can imagine. And he basically said it in this way. He's like, he spent hours and hours trying to understand what happened, trying to decipher, well, what were the causes behind it. And with no exception, almost every case went back to what they went through in their life and the kind of situations that they were in, and what, like you said, the kind of natural tendencies they had, plus the situations that they were in that created the life. And he said something that was very, like, you could feel it as he said it in that documentary. He's like, now, he's like, I couldn't imagine the kind of life that they went through before I talked to them. Like, I couldn't imagine the kind of pain a lot of these people went through. And the fact that they had tolerated that to this point, and they are where they are, I often ask myself, would I have done something different than they did? And I'm not so sure that I would. I'm not so sure that I would. And then the interviewer asked him something interesting. He's like, do you ever judge these people? He's like, I would, but it doesn't make any difference to the circumstance. We need solutions. We need better solutions to our problems that we don't actually understand. We don't know what happens. All we know is that it comes out of our situation that's connected to so many other things that we don't fully understand in society. Dr. Jordan Peterson said something in this way. He was talking about archetypes. He went back, he's like, put yourself in the position of a guard at Auschwitz. you think that that guard might be the evil person, that you don't want to have anything to do with it. But if I put you in his life situation, in that path towards his life, in the same circumstances, would you be confident to say that you would do something different? We're not so different than the people that we judge, than the people that might be so different than us, let alone our clients who are not at all that different from us. And understanding that, I think, develops a different level of compassion and empathy. That's the basic foundations of a conversation like this, of a coaching conversation.
Yeah.
Without that, you actually can't challenge people. Without that, they won't even be open to that challenge. Without that, you can't dig deeper, because there's no safety established. They know energetically that you've already judged. You've already bought into your own thoughts around it. And this is really, that's why I think understanding our own growth is so important, and being grounded that, oh shit, I'm growing just as much as they are. And bringing that vulnerability in those sessions can be incredibly magical. And it actually is freeing, incredibly freeing, because you're not showing up there trying to solve their problems. You're showing up there to go on a journey with them. And you don't know what you're going to discover. And I call that an inner adventure, in a sense.
The image that, as you talk about that, going on a journey together, the image that comes to mind is that came to mind for me is the handoff on a relay. They don't run up and stop and hand it to them and the other person starts. They're running and they have a baton, and the other person starts running and they match their stride and then hand it off. Hopefully both of them are going at full speed, and then one of them continues on and the other one starts to slow down. And I think so often when our coaching, as this person is running this race in life, our coaching is that handoff, is that brief moment where we're in sync with them. We're running step for step with them to help hand something off that they can carry forward until they come back around. We get a chance to run again together.
Yeah. I love that. I love that picture. And this is all to say that, I mean, we're like, as coaches, we're always trying to kind of build our business, trying to like figure out all these things. And we've talked about those things. So definitely watch our podcast episodes on the sales conversation, the marketing, how you can build your marketing, how you can think about your ideal clients, because we've done many conversations around that. But I want to urge, and this is a part that coaches miss, because they'll be like, well, I have that part figured out. And I'll tell you this quick story. Like, when I'm listening, and I'm fortunate to listen to a few coaching calls every week of other coaches. And as I'm listening to these calls, especially when you're talking about a discovery or a sales call, most of my feedback is not in the offer section, where most coaches think that they struggle with, is like when they're talking, that is something we need to figure out. And we've had conversations about that. Something we need to get better at is getting comfortable in making an offer for your package and everything. But most of my feedback is actually in the way that the coach coaches. Most of the feedback is around, oh, this is the point where actually I don't think the client felt connected to you. I don't, you were kind of lecturing the client in that moment. And it kind of felt like he was kind of closing off there. You didn't dig deeper in this area. You got stuck in this one area. You didn't understand the full context. Like these are feedback. Had those things gone right, more than likely that client would have moved forward, but they didn't, because they didn't feel that they were understood. They didn't feel like they were supported. They didn't feel like they were challenged enough. So they didn't feel the necessity to move forward towards that.
There wasn't enough value delivered.
Not enough value. And that's why our growth matters, and it matters how we show up in the coaching calls. It doesn't matter if it's a discovery call. It doesn't matter if it's somewhere in the middle. And I'll quote Rich Litvin and from his book, The Prosperous Coach. And that statement has carried that on with me to this day. I'll carry it on. Coach, coach, and coach. Don't stop coaching whatever you do. And that's a huge part of what we do in the communities. Whether you have clients or not, we're going to connect you with a coach who's going to give you feedback consistently for you to improve. And you'll also be coaching somebody consistently while you're getting clients. In fact, even to top that off, what we're doing in the process is we have actually created coaching contracts as well. So as you stay with us for a while and we know what kind of coach you are and you can deliver at certain level, we will connect you with companies where you can coach their clients at group and one-on-one level. And we're working hard at that part. So while you're building your business skill sets to take your business to the next level, you will have opportunities to work with actual clients as you're part of our community. But I definitely urge you to at the least have 3 clients at the same time, whether they're paid or not. Otherwise, you're going to more than likely fall off course and you're going to lose sight of what you're trying to.
Yeah, there, as you said, coach, coach, and coach. So that means 3 clients. That's coach, coach, and coach.
I know, that works out. I didn't think of it that way, but it does work out.
So that's what you meant. Not 3 times a day, at least 3 times a week. And I totally agree. And it's, you know, you'd also had made the point that there ought to be if we're coaching 3 times a week. Now, it's quite possible that we're coaching someone who's paying us. It's also quite possible that these coaching sessions are strategy sessions, are enrollment calls. That's also coaching. And the goal is if we got 3 paid clients, then we also ought to have at least be doing a 1 or 2 or maybe 3 additional strategy sessions every week. One is or enrollment sessions to practice that. And as we begin to fill our pipeline, we can either move them into a group setting, or maybe it makes sense to raise our rates. But the key is, as you said, Faisal, is to make sure we continue to coach and not just get to the, okay, I've got 3 clients, now I'm good. We should also be looking for new people to coach on a consistent basis to further enhance our ability, to make sure that we continue to stay connected. And it also allows us to serve more greatly. And it also helps us make more money.
It does. And actually, I've been inspired by many people here probably have heard Gary Vee's big name in marketing. But one of the things that I love what he says when he was talking to a bunch of people on a live event. He's like, you know why I win and you don't? And I thought he was going to say something arrogant, but he's like, I out humble you in every area of my life. I love what he's like. And here's what I mean. He's like, you will have a bunch, and he's not a coach, but he's an influencer. He's like, you will have a bunch of followers or a bunch of people you start working with, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm too big, I can't do certain things. He's like, to this day, I will go show up at podcasts, at events, and I'll do many of these things that I'm stretched thin with, but I will go there and serve. I'll go there and support people. I'll go there and show up. You won't do that. That's why your business is not working. And that actually applies very much to coaches, that a huge part of what you're going to do initially will be free. You will show up for free on podcasts. You will show up at speaking engagement. You will show up in small groups. People need to understand what your message is. If you're the world's best kept secret, no matter how great your coaching is, nobody's going to know about it.
Yeah, if you're the best kept secret, you're still a secret.
You're still a secret. Nobody will know about it. So it will require you to do a lot of sessions, whether they're free or paid. It will require you to show up for people in group settings and having conversations with people, helping people through things. And I think it was Jim Rohn or one of those guys said, once you've helped enough people, you will get what you want.
Yeah, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have anything you want. And it really is. The other thought that occurs to me is that coaching and selling coaching is at its heart, it's an act of faith. We offer up what we have humbly in order to serve. We deliver value to people and then ask them if they want, and they ask them, and then ask them if they want to continue and are willing to pay for it. And if we either don't deliver enough value or we don't deliver value that matters to them, then no, they won't. But it really is at its heart, it's an act of faith. And I think that's one of the reasons we struggle so much is, as you said, we think people, once I'm a coach, they'll magically find out. I have faith that they'll find out who I am. No, not unless we go out and serve. When we do that, then yes, they'll see who we are. And some will come to us and say, as you talked about this lady who reached out to you after several months, who said, I feel empty and I need your help. And that was someone who, if anyone else were to look at her, they'd go, I mean, she's got it all together. She's,
and the important thing is, why did she pick me there? The reason she picked me is not because I was someone special, but because I showed up in a few trainings and coaching sessions that she was a part of.
Mm-hmm.
If it was another coach, more than likely she would have shown up to them.
Yeah. But you did. You showed up and you served without any expectation of return, which is also, I believe, one of the keys to a successful enrollment session. Is our job is not to sell them into what we have. Our job is to connect them to their dream and then offer to help them get it.
Yes, agreed. And on that note, if you don't have a community, if you're not coaching consistently, if you're not getting the right feedback, if you're not getting the right strategies and tools and perspective to move ahead, join our community, join our free Facebook group. The link will be below. Or you can go to our website, coachingmasterycommunity.com. You'll be able to see free resources. We have our blog section too. You will get you'll get trainings, and you will have a chance to apply to be part of CMC. It's a very close-knit community, and we will verify and we will vet, and we'll have a conversation with you before you can join our community. So either go to our Facebook group, which is free to join. You'll get a lot of value there, or go to coachingmasterycommunity.com. Jeff, did you want to mention something else?
I was going to say also, we're doing what we call our grand chain reset next week. So if you are thinking, I would like to get engaged with the community, and I need to get a coach, and I want to have a chance to practice coaching with a coach and get that feedback, then you've got basically a week to apply and have a conversation with one of the leadership team. And if it's something that makes sense, then we'll talk to you about what it would take to join. And then you can actually, basically on October 3rd, we'll do the chain we'll set it up on the 29th, and then October 3rd, we will release it and announce it. So you'll know who your coach is, who your client is, and you'll be able to get right to it. So between now and Christmas, you can radically transform your ability, radically level up your ability to coach others.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Thank you for this powerful conversation. And we're excited to work with you. We're excited to hear from you. Make sure you like this post if you're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, or if you're on podcast.
Give us 5 stars. It makes a difference.
Yeah, give us 5 stars, leave a review. We'd love to hear from you. If there are any topics you want us to discuss and talk about, please let us know. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, go to thecoachesjourney.com, and you'll be able to apply to be a guest on our podcast. Please share this with any coaches that will be served by this conversation. Until our next conversation, hope you have an incredible week.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.